So thank you for that introduction. I'm going to tell you a little bit about CHOP. We do a lot of interesting stuff. Today I was asked to talk about some things we've done in the area of energy. I like to know who I'm talking to, so I already know that you all have children or have been children, so I'm glad to know that. And show of hands, how many of you are engineers? Okay, so I need two things from you. I need you to coach everybody else at your table when we go through the engineering wonky stuff, all right? And then I need you to give me a little bit of slack as an architect talking about engineering, okay? So you know how little we know about engineering. How many of you are facility managers like me? So, all right, so I'm going to give you two case studies, and then I'm going to tie it back to our mission. The case studies are going to show you how we reduce cost. At the same time, we added space. They're going to show you what I call engineering magic in two cases. And I think they're also going to be good examples of good stewardship of both the environment and our resources. We're an academic medical center. We have the same tripart mission as every academic medical center. In a competitive market, the research component and the teaching component are not subsidized. And we need to do that, so the more we can husband our resources and support those parts of our mission, the more important it is. But our primary mission, like Don at Erlanger, is restoring kids to good health, and that's how I'll end my talk today. So CHOP has a couple of distinctions. We're one of the top pediatric hospitals in the country. We're one of the oldest, not that matters. I like to say that we've been around since before the Civil War. We're currently 562 beds, 32 more are in flight right now. And we're associated with the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine. I run all the real estate design and construction there. I teach in the College of Engineering at Drexel. I've been in this role at CHOP for 8 years, and I've been designing healthcare and hospital facilities for probably about 35 years now. The person I'm not going to talk about much beyond this slide is named Rachel McCarthy. She's an engineer. She's one of my employees, and she is my mad scientist. She is Doc, all right, from one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future. Little known Doug Carney fact, I went to high school with Biff, all right? Yes, he's really like that. So some facts about CHOP for you engineers in the room. We have about 5 million square feet at what I call the mothership. We're trying to come up with a better name for that. And another about 1.7 million square feet in our network. We have 68 locations, and we provide care in 50 of those locations. We're an all-employee model, and we've had a vertically integrated care model with a single EMR since the 70s. So we're doing a lot of good stuff that way. The wonky stuff, we've got 13 boiler units, almost 9,000 boiler horsepower, approximately 300,000 pounds of steam per hour, and we have about half of that in backup capacity from Veolia, North America. 23 chiller units, almost 30,000 tons, 6,000 of which are steam turbines. And the emergency power units are about 18 units, 22,000 kW. And my engineer buddies told me that the difference between kVA and kW is useful power. So that's real useful power we can connect. And then part of this story are the 13 primary power feeds we get from the utility at 13.2. This is the campus. We are on both sides of the Schuylkill River. The building on the right opened in 2017. That's a 500,000 square foot clinical research building. Series of buildings on the other side of the river, the main hospital. Our oldest building in either of these places is 1974, which doesn't sound like a lot for the gray hairs in the room like me, but that's 50 years now almost. The newest building is the Burger Center, which I think is one that Don and his team visited for the ambulatory project that opened in 2015. Those buildings comprise the 500,000 square feet, or 5 million square feet. So the point of the story is, can you add space and reduce energy? This is our cost curve and our square footage. The bar graph in the upper left is the square footage growth over time from '89 until 2017. Basically went from a little more than 1 million square feet to 5 million square feet on the main campus. The blue line is the energy curve in dollars. Now we know all the things that affect that, especially you engineers in the room. We had major additions in '96, 2003, 9, 15, and 17. Part of that cost curve is associated with the reductions in natural gas prices throughout the United States, but in particular in Pennsylvania. But about half of our savings that you'll see in these graphs comes from these two projects that reduce the real BTUs or KW that we use. And I'll show you why that's important to us beyond cost. The larger chart shows you a little bit more precisely the last few years. And you can see that at the same time we added substantial square footage, our energy cost went down. We basically were a little bit under $17 million a year in energy cost, added over 1 million square feet, almost 2, and our energy costs are below $15 million a year. So the first case study is our chiller heater story. Do any of you have chiller heaters? It's not a brand new technology. So my mad scientist came to me one day and said, I want to learn more about why they ski in the desert. Actually, I beg your pardon, not why they ski in the desert, but how they ski in the desert. Now, I'm a skier, and I looked at this and said, geez, you know, a first-class ticket to the Alps is too inconvenient. You got to build a ski slope in the desert, right? So that's how I looked at it. She looked at it and said, how do I get 20-degree water with 170 discharge air temperature? And something never occurred to me, right? So I said, fine, do whatever you want. That's the Burger Center, by the way, our ambulatory building. And she approached York, who was the manufacturer of the machine at the time, and said, hey, can you adapt this technology to something I have in mind? Then she asked herself, can we use it? And then I asked her, will it matter? Will it make a difference? And the answer is a resounding yes. Don't ask me to explain this diagram. I'll do the best I can with the highlights. But the key was changing this machine from a fluid to air machine, which is what Ski Dubai is, to a fluid to fluid machine, which is what we have, and I believe we have the first one. It's a 700-ton CYK chiller, and what it does for an architect is it takes BTUs out of our chilled water return system, and it dumps them into our reheat hot water system. It's got 175% efficiency. All right, and it cost about $1 million, and it had a 1-year payback at our then energy cost. That's a photograph of it in the right-hand side, and you're all welcome to come and see it, but York, CYK chiller, they'll be happy to sell you one. It's about 712 tons of cooling and about a little bit more than that of heating. It has the effect of an 11 million BTU per hour boiler at 80% efficiency. It essentially replaced almost 100,000 decatherms of boiler capacity a year. Now, why is that important? Well, obviously it saves us some money. It saves us about $1 million a year at $11 a decatherm, which is what we were paying when we made the decision. Of course, energy's gone down. It's $4 a decatherm now. So it went from a 1-year payback to a 2.5 to 3-year payback. Big deal. It's still a good deal, right? More importantly, and you can see its energy performance, which means something to the engineers in the room. But more importantly is the right side of the screen. You know, almost 6,000 tons of carbon dioxide a year is not going up our boiler flues anymore. Almost 500,000 gallons of gasoline equivalent, and almost 3,600 acres of forest. Now, I'll tie that back to our mission in West Philadelphia at the end of the talk. The other project that's an interesting project is what we call OptiSign. And this is another one where the mad scientist comes to me about 5 years ago and says, Doug, I want to put a photovoltaic array on our buildings. And I said, Rachel, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to do that? Our roofs are small, and they have about 1 million penetrations in them. There's no room for photovoltaics. She said, I just want to see what happens. Isn't that the wonderful thing about being in an academic medical center? That's a legitimate reason to do things, right? So I said, all right, it won't cost that much. We'll bundle it with some other projects. Let's see what happens. And her point was, what will it do to the sine wave on the electrical grid, and will it affect any of our downstream equipment? So we did it on a research building where it wasn't going to hurt any people. And of course, the electrical engineers in the room are already laughing. They know that it didn't do anything. So then we did one on the hospital and an ambulatory building. We have 5 photovoltaic arrays now. The last one was a 2-acre ground-mounted unit that we did with an ESCO, because the ESCO came to us and said, you've got this unused land, we want to do it. We typically don't need the capital of an ESCO, but I didn't want to be bothered with it. They'd do the permitting. We'd get guaranteed electric price for that location. All right, whatever, go do it, right? Still not a part of the key story, but it's a 0.5 meg. So Rachel looked at that and said, if they have the technology to convert a 0.5 meg of DC power to useful AC power, what if I put that on my primary incoming feeds? Now, I thought she was absolutely crazy, right? So she convinced me to try it. So we tried it on one main feed, not in the hospital. And what we found was that downstream of the electric meter, we could shift our cost curve down by almost 5%. So that's what we did. We now can install them as fast as we want to. We're putting them on all 13 primary power feeds. It is a rock-solid 17% reduction in the energy cost on the electric side. And you can see the cost curves there. And this is the EUI per degree day normalized on the left side. And then the right side is actually our energy cost, both. And we have two half campuses and combined. The savings that you see there and the costs you see there are against a normalized day. One of the things we always have to talk to our finance people about these cost projections are the first cost savings I showed you were real dollars out the door that we spent with the utilities. These are against a normalized day. They don't understand that, right? So when we say we're gonna save $500,000 in energy, you have to translate that into how much less they can budget, right? Because that's against a normalized day with degree days and so forth. So this is what it looks like. Yes, that's the actual single line diagram. And if you're like me, it doesn't mean too much to you, but the pictures are what the cabinets look like. In the lower right-hand corner is where the 13.2 power comes in. And that's where it's, the phases are statically separated and converted to DC power in the upper right-hand corner. And then in the upper left-hand corner, it's converted back to AC power. Of course, I always ask the so what question. And the so what question here is, all 3 phases are now balanced, number one. So apparently, maybe the electrical engineers in the room can help me with this, but apparently when you have unbalanced phases, it does more than mess up your downstream motors, it actually causes energy losses. So that is corrected through this system. We can get power factors easily approaching 1, sometimes over 1. And in addition to that, we have a perfect sine wave downstream. That much I knew from my early work as an architect when we had motor generator sets that got converted to silicon rectifier drives in elevators and started burning up biomedical equipment when that first happened. The net effect of this is all of this power is dumped into the system downstream of the meter and it's recycled, and we end up saving 17%, and that's a real number. The first primary power service entrance that we did this to, I had them turn it on and off every hour for 30 days because I wanted them to prove what it did. And it was absolutely looked like a square sawtooth, right? Save money, don't save money. It was really unbelievably stable. So why do we do it? We save money. We're good stewards of the environment. But this is really why we do it. It's not a video. The link is there later if you want to watch it. Aisha and Aaliyah McNeil of West Philadelphia are 2 of our patients. They both have really bad childhood asthma. The most common problem we have, chronic illness that we treat, is childhood asthma in West Philadelphia. And what you see is we are reducing the triggers for childhood asthma in West Philadelphia, so this perfectly aligns with our mission. We send less pollution up our smokestacks through the boilers in really meaningful and significant ways. So we're actually reducing pollution right where we are. So in addition to saving money, it's also perfectly aligned with mission. We're helping kids restore to health. And then the other reason is on the OptiSign program, those are remote generation facilities where there are less kW that we're using. But the graph is really important. That's the most recent graph I could find for generation sources of electricity in Pennsylvania from the public utilities. This is the graph I use to tell people why my BMW is more efficient than their Tesla, or at least less polluting. And that's because 53% of the electricity we use in Pennsylvania is from coal-fired plants in western Pennsylvania, all of which dump particulate and acid rain on eastern Pennsylvania where we live. All right, makes for beautiful sunsets, but it's a little rough on the lungs. So this is why we do that, and hopefully you get a sense of the technology that you can use to reduce your energy costs at the same time you grow the enterprise. And the reason I call it engineering magic is because if it fails, we don't do anything other than stop saving money. It's a completely reliable environment, and all of our downstream equipment in both cases are working less hard, and so our capital costs are reduced in those. So that's what I have for you. Thank you.